to Stokes, who's onside. One down. Here's Sims. It's a good serve this from Southampton. They could finish the job here. It's Shane Long, and he has done it. Just a minute to play. That's stoppage time. Here's Letizia.
Hello and welcome. You have reached with us, listener, episode 77 of the Saintsfcpodcast. And I think this one is very much the 2-1 edition. We've got 3 fixtures to go through. All of the fixtures ended up being 2-1, 2 for the Saints, 1 for Newcastle against the Saints. And we're going to try and cover them all in a very quick hour, along with a year of Ralph. What on earth's going on with Cedric? The resurgence of Shane Long, Jack Stevens, and we might even talk about Fraser Forster and Danny Ings as well. We may even mention that it's your birthday tomorrow, Tom. So,
very exciting!
Happy birthday for tomorrow!
Thank you very much, John. Thank you.
Welcome back onto the podcast. I'm sure this is exactly what you were planning on doing for your birthday preparations.
Hey, when you get to my age, this is as exciting as it gets. So don't worry about that. I've got a Diet Coke. I've been doing my work. Can't grumble.
Yeah. I suppose you're probably more excited about the imminent birthday of your little one that should be coming soon. But anyway, this isn't a podcast about parenting, although it is something that we do stray onto from time to time. Tom, all I can say is your life is about to change in ways that you cannot imagine. Good and bad, but it's, yeah.
Oh, well. Hopefully more good than bad.
Yeah, it'll be interesting once the baby's arrived, see how kind of compos mentis you are on the podcast. I might have to start bringing in some old friends, depending on how your mental welfare stacks up. But I suppose if we want to talk about mentality and mental welfare, if we start with that Saints-Watford game, and we knew what an important run of fixtures, the 3 fixtures that we're talking about today, Watford, Norwich, Newcastle, 3 teams that you fancy Saints to beat on a good day. You're also, obviously as a Saints fan, aware that we can lose to them as well. And with where we started 3 weeks ago, second bottom to Watford, who were bottom. The 2 bottom teams playing each other. This game was so important. And, of course, you'd expect Saints to come out from the first second of the game and be firing on all cylinders. And that's not exactly what happened.
No, it was a bit like Everton, wasn't it? All over again. It was so bizarre. I'm on a strict travel ban now, but obviously, John, you and I went to the Arsenal game. We saw Saints tear into Arsenal, and Arsenal were lucky to get out there with a point. You thought, that's it. They'll take that home form. They'll take that now to the home form. They'll start bright and breezy against, a very poor Watford team. But they were all over us, and we were terrible. And Højbjerg sort of set the tone, didn't he, John, with that terrible pass back to, I think, Sarri or whatever. I think the guy that scored for Watford. And the Saints were all over the shop.
Yeah, I mean, it really was shocking. There were a couple of warnings of where it was going, and that, I mean, the back passes, and then, I mean, let's cover that Watford goal straight away. I mean, Jack Stevens, he's generally been quite good since he's come back into the side, had one of his kind of lapses of ability in terms of when that ball came back to him, and I'm not entirely sure what he was trying to do, but it kind of seemed to graze his thigh and then go past him with Sarr running in the right direction, and he wasn't at that point. He changed his body shape to try and deal with the ball, and it all went horribly wrong.
Yeah, he got kind of caught in 2 minds, didn't he? It looked like he didn't know whether to try and knee it up and hook it away or whether to try and knee it out. But in the end, he sort of didn't do anything. He sort of just, if anything, he helped because he just sort of gave the ball a little bit of extra pace. And then he was comprehensively out-sprinted for the final part. I think, John, you said this on our WhatsApp group, that he has this unfortunate tendency to make what seems to be a lot of mistakes that lead to goals. And I don't know whether that's true or whether that's just sort of confirmation bias. Yeah, because you'd probably say the same thing about Yoshida, and years gone by, you'd probably say the same thing about Højbjerg, just sort of seems to make a lot of donkey mistakes. But it was disappointing. Stevens had been, having dropped, from the team, had come back in, and then actually he had a really good time. And then the problem with Stevens is almost, he takes 2 steps forward, he takes 1 step back every time, doesn't he, with something like that?
Yeah, I mean, generally he's been quite good and relatively solid. I mean, I say relatively because he's in the Saints lineup and we don't really do solid defences anymore. But he's been looking okay. He's been looking more than capable. But it is something about the Jack Stevens mistake always seems to lead to that goal. And that was the case with Watford.
But, well, John, maybe it's not the Jack Stevens mistake always leads to a goal. Maybe it's the Saints. And the Carl Anker piece today in the Athletic is well worth a read, talking about the sort of 3 things that Southampton do. One of them is we miss a lot of chances. We make a lot of mistakes back, and we get punished for those mistakes. And I wonder if if we really, really think about it, we know that our defence just isn't very good. So is it just we're more likely to be punished by a mistake? I mean, if you look, Bednarek, I think, up until a few weeks ago, had the most mistakes or leading to opposition goals in the Premier League. So it's not really just a Jack Stevens problem. And when you chuck into that Cedric, who we'll come to, but is playing possibly the worst football I've seen any Saints player play consistently for a number of years, it does sort of make you think, Stevens gives those chances away, but we also just get relentlessly punished. And I think, I mentioned Cedric there, I mentioned Bednarek, even like McCarthy, he's still not got a solid, I would say a really solid keeper. If you look at Watford are down there, but I think if you look at Watford's keeper, Ben Foster, you'd probably say, if you put him in that Saints team, we'd be much stronger. But yeah, I don't know, he just seems to be one of those unfortunate players that when he makes a mistake, we seem to concede a goal.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say, the mistakes are part of it. What upset me, I suppose, from that first half against Watford was just the abjectness of everything. It was terrible. I can't remember a decent chance. I think maybe Højbjerg had a shot which went like miles over in the first half. But, it's funny. I think apart from the game against Arsenal, where I think we were quite good in both halves, this season we don't seem to have been able to get 2 decent halves in a game together, and we do a good half and a bad half, and unfortunately our bad half is normally worse than the good half is good, and the balance doesn't go in our favour. Against Watford though, it was a good second half. I put kind of then a miracle. I think the miracle is more the result, but we have seen Saints play well. And I think Boufal really set the scene, didn't he? I mean, he came on at half-time, and I don't know what minute it was, but there was a point where he ran through a couple of Watford defenders, took it down to the byline, pulled it back to Shane Long, who had a snapshot which was tipped onto the bar by Ben Foster. And that really, I suppose, set the tone for the second half, didn't it?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what Boufal has to do to get on the pitch more. If you look at the way we're playing at the moment, Musa looks tired. I think it's safe to say he doesn't. He still is incredibly sharp, but he doesn't look like he's going to last 90 minutes. Redmond's out of form. I think it's safe to say, and I don't know. Boufal is one of those players who has proved everyone, I think, wrong. And it's great to see because he seems to really hurt teams, doesn't he, when he comes on the pitch? He seems to always create something. He did that against Arsenal when we were there, ghosting past 3 or 4 players at a time, always finding a Saints player. So I don't know what he has to do. And also, to be fair to him, he is toughened up, hasn't he? He seems to have been down the gym, been putting the weights in, and he seems to be a much better, solid defensive player. So yeah, he absolutely turned the game for Saints. There was a clip, wasn't there, that went viral where he sort of went through a bloke's legs twice.
Oh yeah,
it was a bit cruel.
It was lovely.
But yeah, he does make a big difference, and he kind of galvanised Saints because the Saints were incredibly poor against Watford. But that that first goal, which saying about Moose looks tired, but what an assist, John.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. It was kind of, I suppose, what Gineppo seems to do is he seems to run at players in this kind of quite scrappy way. It's quite hard to watch, and it's quite confusing to watch. And I only imagine that's really confusing to the defenders. A really nice run down to the byline, pulls it back across goal, and then, I mean, I'm still kind of amazed how Ings managed to bundle that into the goal, because there were the keeper and two other defenders around him, and he somehow managed to leap over them and smash the ball into the top of the net, whilst kind of looking like he was going to fall over, but then managing to stay on his feet.
Well, he wanted it more, didn't he? But I mean, to your point about the running style of Gineppo, it's a bit like Yannick Bolasie. That just kind of very ungainly, sort of flailing sort of arm thing. But it was a great cross. And also, if you see, we've had a few goals this season where players have hit the byline. The goal against Brighton, where Buffal hits the byline. It seems to be, it's a good approach for us because we do flood the box.
Yeah.
We play as forward with Ward-Prowse, Højbjerg, and the forwards getting in there. So, more of it. It just causes chaos. It was a really smart finish from Danny Ings.
Yeah.
Thank God for Danny Ings.
There was a handball which wasn't picked up by VAR in the build-up to that, but I think, when it comes to handballs against Watford, I'll take that because, God, that was awful, wasn't it? A couple of seasons ago, the Pellegrino season. Was it Decore?
It was, and it was the night of my engagement party, John. Which I think, did you come to my engagement party? I can't remember, but yeah, I remember it clear as day. Well, it was horrible, but Watford goal was coming to them, and then the second goal. I'd been slagging off Ward-Prowse before that. Made me look like an idiot.
Yeah, it's funny because James Ward-Prowse didn't have a particularly great game, in my opinion, from what I watched, but they gave him man of the match at the end of it, and I can only assume that was because of his top corner finish, which Ben Foster very nearly got to, but it was so far into the corner and hit with enough power that he just couldn't keep it out. And so there we are. Suddenly, we're winning 2-1. And we take the lead late enough in the game that we don't have long enough to throw it away and lose lose it all.
We gave it a good go, didn't we, with that Damari, with that, was it Gray, with that shot he had at the very end, the sort of half volley. We gave it a bloody good go at throwing that game away. But no, it was a great free kick from James Ward-Prowse. You can imagine he must have practiced that all, and he knows he's got probably a 2-foot window in the goal to get that in. He knows that's where the one place the goalkeeper can't get to. Well, Ben Foster gave it a bloody good go. But no, it almost also, I liked watching the reaction of the other players, because even with Ward-Prowse himself, he sort of didn't quite believe it had gone in at first.
Yeah.
But no, it's a great shot. And also fair play to him, he's coming for a bit of stick, but if you look, when it matters, he does step up. There's not many Saints players you can say that about.
No, and he's been great, hasn't he? Because this season, you look at the last 13 goals or something that we've scored, and they've been mostly shared between Danny Ings and James Ward-Prowse, and the only exception being Ryan Bertrand, and we'll get onto his goal in a bit. I feel like Shane Long's got a goal coming as well. He had another chance against Watford, didn't he, that was cleared off the line. And obviously every time that the Saints lineup is announced on Twitter, you get derision about Shane Long being in the team. But as someone who came in for that Watford game, I thought he did pretty well. I mean, was it Long and Buffal that came on at half time?
I think so.
Yeah, because Obafemi was on in the first half, wasn't he?
Obafemi was invisible. And now Peter slipped down the pecking order back to Shea Adams ahead of him. I mean, I think with Long, he's one of those players that I imagine other professionals have a huge, it's one of, other professionals probably will never say a bad thing about him, and will say, actually, that's the guy you want on your team.
Yeah.
Whereas fans are like, well, we want Agueros, we want, you want Rashford, you want players like that, but they can't all be like that.
No, I mean,
you need to have players who do the work that makes things uncomfortable for other teams, don't you? Particularly if Saints, if we're going to press, then Shane Long is our best presser of the ball, isn't he?
He is, and when he's got that energy up and he's running, it's it's so good to see, and he does cause havoc and problems for other opposition. Having said that, I'd still take Rashford and Aguero, but they're not really available to us. So.
Oh yeah, I mean if it's binary, then I would take one or the other. I would take the Rashford or an Aguero. But I think he's got really, the thing with Shane Long, he's got great control, he's got a fantastic leap, and he's just got non-stop energy, and he's also very experienced and very wily. And I think there was a bit in the Norwich game where he showed that, where he sort of won the ball, chased down, and sort of flicked it against the defender to win a throw-in. But it was just a very clever bit of football. I'm a big Shane Long fan. Huge.
Right, so let's move on to the Norwich game. If the Watford one was the most important one, then the Norwich one wasn't very far behind, because they were the other team in the relegation zone, and that was 2 6-pointers that we needed to win both of them. And we did win both of them, and we're still not out of the relegation zone as we speak right now. But, I mean, that just does show how important that was, and how important that it was to not give away the points as well. First half against Norwich, I'm going to go and say this was the best first half of the season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm torn though between Saints playing really well and Norwich were really bad, weren't they? Norwich didn't look like a Premier League team, in my view, but you can only beat what's put in front of you. And Saints were all over them, weren't they? We were flying at them. James Ward-Prowse's set pieces were completely unplayable. Danny Ings was unplayable. Shane Long was running them ragged. We looked fantastic, and we scored a really good first goal.
Yeah, and I know Norwich aren't the greatest team, but for me, this was the first time I really saw exactly what Ralph was trying to do with the team and seeing it working. I just remember one of the problems that we have at home with these teams is that if a team sits back and asks us to break them down, we're just no good at doing it. And really, one of the reasons why we've had better results up until now away from home is because when teams are attacking us, or when the ball's in the with the opponents, that's when the press works. So the 4-2-2-2 press works when you've got Danny Ings chasing their backs and blocking the passing channels, and Shane Long doing the same. And this game, I really noticed that. And one of the things which I really noticed was that when we got the ball, we weren't trying to pass it up and create chances, I suppose, the traditional football way, but we were actually kind of hoofing it up, giving the ball away, and then getting Danny Ings and Shane Long to try and fight, either for the first ball or for the second ball, and then people like Højbjerg and James Ward-Prowse piling in and trying to win, the knockdown or the spill. And it just worked really, really well. And we had Norwich press back, and they didn't know what to do. They were trying to pass it out the back, and they just couldn't do it. They couldn't deal with us. So, I agree that Norwich weren't great, but I actually thought that was spot on tactics. And finally, all the players seemed to be following the tactics, and it seemed to be working.
And John, are we saying the sort of first successful emergence of the 4-2-2-2, do you think now?
Yeah, well, I mean, he used it against Arsenal, and we got that 2-2, and we probably should have won. He used it against Watford, which didn't go particularly well, but then eventually we got the result. He used it against Norwich and had that really fantastic first half. We'll get onto the second half in a bit. But more often than not, this tactic with the 4 at the back, the 2-2-2, the high press, giving the ball to the opponent deep in their half seems to be functioning. And it seems to be giving us a better chance of winning games, and winning games at home. And thank God for the season ticket holders that they've had 2 wins to view now as well.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be I think it obviously is a formation where everyone has to do it. And I think, it sounds silly, but if you have a weak link, it's like, any sort of machine, it sort of falls apart. I think, again, to talk to Carl Anker's incredibly insightful pieces, he had something this week about Southampton maybe not having the quality of players for playing the way that Ralph wants to play.
Yeah.
And I think if all the players aren't on form, I think that's definitely true. But I agree. I think it's kind of, high press. We don't seem to score many goals, that aren't winning the ball high up the pitch or aren't set pieces.
Yeah.
I can't really remember the last time anyone sort of floated in a 30-yarder. It just doesn't seem to happen. We sort of are winning balls off the last man or winning playing off the shoulder.
Or we're winning throw-ins, corners, and free kicks. Which, when James Ward-Prowse is delivering like he is at the moment, I mean, that gives us an amazing opportunity. I
mean, you can imagine that the Saints players must be licking their lips every time we've got a corner or every time the opportunity James Ward-Prowse to get a ball in that box. And also, I've noticed James is now taking corners from both sides.
Yeah.
Previously he'd give those up to Bertrand maybe, but he's not. So he's obviously got real confidence in his ability to hurt teams now. And I think if we had the sort of crashing centre backs that Man City enjoy, in terms of getting the goals, or Tottenham enjoy, we'd be in a much better place. But fair play to James Ward-Prowse, because him and Danny Ings are sort of leading this, not single-handedly, but not far off it.
Yeah, I'm going to make a statement here, Tom. That James Ward-Prowse delivery for the Ings goal, the first goal against Norwich, is perhaps my favourite James Ward-Prowse free kick in terms of the quality of it and the way how it was executed so perfectly. For me, it was an absolute thing of beauty because he whips it in so fast. It's in swinging. It's heading towards the goal. So the keeper's having to worry about, if nobody touches this, I still need to save it. But if anyone touches it, whether it's a defender or a Southampton attacker, there's going to be danger as well, and I might have to save whatever happens next. And he put it in at the near post, so hard, so beautifully weighted, and then Danny Ings just had to get the faintest of touches to make it a guaranteed goal. And I think almost anyone could have touched it, and that would have gone in. It was so perfect. It was beautiful. I loved it. I thought it was an absolute thing of beauty, and I want to celebrate that free kick.
Well, you hear a lot about players, and they say using the pace that's already on the ball.
Yeah.
And the difference that makes if you can get a ball, how much easier it makes your life. And you're right. It was that whole, I hate the sort of corridor of uncertainty, wasn't it? Because it's almost like if someone doesn't clear this, it's either an own goal or a Southampton player's going to score. It was that sort of horrible area, and I liked it because he whipped it in like a shot, didn't he? It was almost he was almost like, I'm going to shoot, but hopefully someone gets on the end of it. And he is kind of stepping up, and I think was it that crazy statistic that like last season he didn't get a single assist all season.
Yeah,
that's something insane. Where because everyone talks about his brilliant free kicks and his brilliant corners, but actually he doesn't actually register many assists. Whereas obviously, it's a fantastic assist for the Danny Ings goal, and obviously John, probably you want to talk about the Ryan Bertrand goal as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was just another fantastic corner. And what I really liked about this was how well worked it was. So, I mean, it's obviously something they've worked on in the training ground because everybody knew exactly where they had to go. And so James Ward-Prowse with that out-swinging corner, Shane Long with his incredible leap, and I don't really understand how he's able to leap like that, but beautiful leap.
He's a hurler, isn't he?
Yeah. Gets right up in the air and then flicks the ball back towards the far post, and there's Ryan Bertrand running in with a very simple finish.
Yeah, and it's also a very clever free kick. It's a very clever corner, to play if you're playing teams that leave people on the post, because you're guaranteed to not be offside.
Yeah.
So it works in that, and you could see it was something they worked on. The agonising thing when it comes to the Newcastle game is that we did exactly the same thing against Newcastle with exactly the same combination of players, and it didn't quite work.
No.
When it was 1-1. But again, it shows some inventiveness from Saints, and it shows more players that can contribute. And I think Shane Long is going to have a big impact on Saints this season. It's funny, isn't it? Because we all got excited about Shea Adams, but ultimately, right now, it's all about Shane Long for Saints in terms of the second striker.
Yeah, he's doing really, really well. Other things that happened in the first half, we had the Gineppo pot shot, we had the Højbjerg shot, we had a smattering of other attacks and chances. And I've got to say, when the whistle blew for the first half, I was kind of gutted because I felt like if that half had carried on for another 5 minutes, we might have been 3 or 4-0 up. I didn't want that half to end at all.
Yeah, and also 2-0 is a dangerous score, isn't it? Particularly what any score for Saints is a dangerous score, but 2-0 is a dangerous score, and so it proves in the second half.
Yeah. The thing that really worried me at half time is so this was the first time Saints have been shown on Amazon, as it was for most Premier League teams, and Amazon had a Opta stat up at half time which showed the percentage chance of Saints victory, a draw, and a Norwich victory, and they had Norwich as a 1% chance to win. And when I saw that stat, I just thought, oh God, you can't put that up. You know, if there's anything that's going to guarantee a Norwich win, it's like anyone saying that it's all over, there's no hope anymore. I saw that and I just thought, oh God, here we go. I could just tell. And I was feeling a little sense of trepidation at the start of the second half, because I know how kind of Jekyll and Hyde we've been in football matches this season, you know, where we have one good first half, we'll have a terrible second half, or if we have a terrible first half, we'll have a good second half. And, you know, we did have a pretty poor second half, and I mean, Timo Pukki got another goal.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that Norwich had to come out, didn't they? And they had to attack, and they came straight out with a really good shot from Pukki that tested Alex McCarthy. And I think the worrying, I mean, what was it? Look, you know they're going to come out positive. Yeah, we did concede. It looked a bad goal to concede. And I don't want to say that teams are deliberately targeting our right back, but it does seem to be teams that are deliberately targeting our right back. And certainly that right-sided combination of our centre with Stevenson and Cedric, we'd look very vulnerable. And it was a fairly strange goal, wasn't it? 'Cause it was just a sort of simple pass that just sliced us completely open.
It was, and I know that Ralph's been talking about how he plays a different sort of offside trap for VAR, and I think Cedric and Stevens were trying to play the VAR offside track, and Bednarek was playing a bit deeper, so that just didn't work at all. And that misunderstanding, I suppose, between Stevens and Bednarek is what cost us there, along with, I suppose, if Stevens is trying to play the offside trap, he's not looking to clear the ball. And I mean, who knows what goes through Cedric's mind when he's playing a game of football. But that was the problem there. You know, I don't know whether you pin that on Stevens, Bednarek, or Cedric, or just the combination of them all, and thinking, well, is that going to get better when they play together more often, or was that just a weird misunderstanding that led to that, as you say, really simple pass just splitting us wide open and giving Pukki a perfect chance?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we lack, we've said this many, many times before, but I think we lack leaders across the pitch. And I think in defence, where you probably need leaders more than anyone, we absolutely have a deficit there. And I think, you know, if you look at the way like Van Dijk commands his defence, and one of the amazing things about Van Dijk, and I know a lot of Saints fans are angry at him, but he is, you know, arguably, well, easily the world's best defender. He, you know, it's actually the little amount of work he does because of how well he organises the other players around him.
Yeah.
And Saints lack that kind of experienced head, because Stevens has many, you know, attributes, but I don't think Stevens doesn't seem to be a born leader, and he doesn't seem to be a shouter.
And Bednarek's still very young as well.
Bednarek's still very. I mean, the two of them are fairly young. I mean, what, Stevens like 25, 26?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Bednarek's what, like 23?
Maybe
Cedric
even younger.
Yeah, and Cedric and Bertrand are the elder statesmen in that defence. But we're playing with two relatively inexperienced centre backs, and I think it shows. And people just, well, I guess we're going to come to talk about Cedric, because I don't think you can not talk about Cedric. People just seem to be hammering that channel for us. I mean, they did it against Arsenal, got a lot of joy.
Yeah.
Arsenal did it against us, and and then we saw it again there against Norwich.
Yeah, I mean, before we get onto the crazy last 15 minutes from Cedric, just kind of that offside trap and how it works. I mean, for our younger listeners, you won't remember this, but probably the most famous offside trap was the one led by Tony Adams and Arsenal. And he was just such a clear leader, and everyone knew what they were doing. You know, if Tony Adams steps forward, puts his arm up in the air, everyone steps forward, and he needs someone with that sort of commanding presence to make it work.
Yeah.
And we've had that with Van Dijk, we've had it with Jose Fonte, we've had it with Klaus Lundekvam and various others. And I think, we do need someone to do that and take control. But you're right, when you look at Bednarek and Stevens, who takes control there? Because Stevens, although he's the older of the pair, maybe you'd actually say, well, that should really be Bednarek's role, because he's started all the games under Ralph Hasenhüttl, so he's Ralph's man, so he should be the leader, but perhaps he doesn't have the personality for it.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, if you think about the players we've got on the bench, you've got Yoshida with 100 international caps, World Cup player. Surely he's the leader. Obviously, Ralph doesn't think so. You've got Vestergaard, a giant of a man, who has played in probably the best league in the world, the Bundesliga, and did really well, and is an international. Again, obviously, Ralph doesn't consider him to be a leader. So if you're Ralph, you can only play with the four centre backs we've got, and none of them obviously he thinks are up to that task. So he's just making the best out of a bad situation.
Yeah.
It does feel tough on Stevens. He's not put a foot wrong. And what I would say about Stevens is he does appear to have, and this was certainly something I noticed in the Norwich game, or certainly in the Newcastle game, he seems to put this idea of trying to always play the ball out. He's sort of just getting rid of it.
Yeah.
Which I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think, defenders these days do like to play the ball, but there are times when you just need to hoof it into the stand, and Stevens has brought that to his game, and he seems to be using that most of the time quite well. So let's talk about Cedric, because the last 15 minutes of that game, I think we're at sort of Ali Dia levels here. It didn't look like a professional football player playing football. It looked like that whole kind of idea of, it's kind of like your childhood dream, where suddenly you're in the team, but except you play well in your dream. And Cedric was kind of like probably the reality of if any of us suddenly ended up in the middle of a Premier League game playing for Southampton and being how clueless. But I just don't understand what he was thinking for the whole last 15 minutes. Every time I looked towards him, my heart was in my mouth. I couldn't understand what he was doing. I couldn't understand his positioning. I couldn't understand the passes he was trying to make, the tackles he wasn't trying to make. He just had me terrified. And if we were playing a better team than Norwich, I think Cedric would have been seriously found out.
Well, the biggest mystery is not Cedric. The biggest mystery is what's happened to Jan Valery. What happened to the bloke that Ralph was very happy to put in against Man United, against Tottenham, against top teams with brilliant wingers last season? How has it gone so wrong so quickly for Jan Valery? And Valery wasn't even on the bench against Newcastle. So, and Cedric was very poor in the game we saw against Arsenal. I think he got, Kieran Tierney had him every time on toast, and he couldn't handle him. But you're absolutely right. Like, what is going on with Cedric? Cedric, I think there was a bit that kind of summed up Cedric's season really, which was against Norwich at the very end, which was then, I think you saw like Cedric sort of got down the wing, and then sort of, this was like with like 2 minutes to go, sort of sliced it really high in the air, and it sort of just dropped on the edge of the, he had the opportunity to run the ball into the corner. He didn't. He sort of just sliced at it wildly, and it dropped on the edge of the Norwich penalty area, and they were able to come at us again. And you're like, well, what's he thinking? Like, what's his mental head at? And this isn't just a footballer. Like, if you think about it, Cedric is arguably the most garlanded player in the Southampton squad. He's the only one who's won, a major international honour.
Yeah.
He's not just a jobbing footballer. This is a guy that should be amongst the best right backs in European football. And he just looks totally lost. But again, I spoke about it when they did it. The club was absolutely mad to let him do that interview in the Daily Telegraph, because they must have let him do it. Because if they didn't let him do it, he shouldn't be anywhere near the squad. So he comes out and says, this will be my last season. But maybe he knows he's got a deal sewn up. Maybe he knows someone's going to, in January, he's going to get a contract on the table. They're talking about AC Milan, which is nuts, but, nothing rewards like failure. And he, maybe he knows that. So he's taking his foot off the gas. But right now, he's probably, if you look at the Southampton 11, I have some reservations about McCarthy, but, I don't feel any better about Angus Gunn. But I'd say they're all working hard. The exception is Cedric, and sorry to rant about it a little bit, but the most maddening thing is the way we're playing at the moment is actually in the last couple of games, Cedric had really good shooting opportunities from overlaps, and his shooting is terrible. He just hits it straight at the keeper every time. Did it against Newcastle, straight at the keeper. And Valerie is someone we know who can really, really smash a ball. So again, what's going on with Ali? I wonder if there's personal things, or his attitude or whatever it is. I don't know. But obviously, Ralph has just fallen well out of love with him.
Yeah, it is crazy. I'm going to highlight a tweet from Alessi78 on Twitter after I mentioned Cedric's performance against Norwich. He summed it up as can't cross the ball to save his life, also can't stop crosses from coming into our box. For a modern day fullback, that's not exactly ideal qualities. And as for that lazy, aimless hoof at the end, ... I just don't understand why he's in the side. I mean, Valerie seems to offer so much more. Sure, his performance against Leicester was atrocious, but everyone was atrocious.
Mm. I don't get it. I mean, there's something going on there, isn't there? Ralph has spoken before about Obafemi. He sort of alluded to things going on with Obafemi. I don't know if it's a similar thing going on with Valerie about his lifestyle or something he doesn't like, or his attitude.
We had the same problem with Bertrand earlier on in the season as well, didn't
we? Yeah.
So, I mean, it's obviously not something, Ralph is happy to fall out with players and keep them out of the side for things other than their footballing ability, it seems.
Yeah. I mean, it's worrying because Cedric is not our... next season there will be no Cedric. That is without doubt. He's leaving. I would say, thanks for the memories. If you think a relatively cheap signing, played a lot of games, on the face of it, overall, he's not been too bad. But, it's like when you leave any job, people really only remember you for your character and the way you behave after you've resigned, because that is kind of that kind of shows what you're made of, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And Cedric is showing himself to be, he needs time away from that team.
Yeah, he's not doing it for me at the moment. So, I mean, let's get on to the Newcastle game. Before we actually talk about the match itself, Tom, I've got to say that I set off with my wife and my son, and the plan was we were going to go out, buy a Christmas tree, come back, maybe do a walk. So we went out. We started a walk on Dartmoor, and it was a bit windy, but the sun had cleared. And then suddenly this thunder and lightning storm rolls in. And bear in mind, we've gone to one of the highest parts of Dartmoor, so we're about 400 metres above sea level. And this pouring, lashing rain comes in. There's lightning strikes. My wife, who's pregnant as well, by the way, just does an army roll into a ditch to try and get away from the lightning. I've got my son, who's just turned 5 this weekend, holding my hands, going "Daddy, this is scary." And I'm saying, "Sophie, calm down, stop running, get out of that ditch. We just got to get off the hill." So kind of following all of that, I was just... before the Newcastle game started, I was just quite happy to get home and be alive and not have an electrocuted wife or son, or probably actually what was most likely is that while she was trying to dodge lightning strikes, she might have kind of injured her ankle or something. I had to carry her off Dartmoor myself. My son also fell in a bog as well, so he was covered head to toe in mud, and I had to lift him out. So I had mud all down myself as well. So we were a right state by the time we got in, and that kind of put things into perspective a bit. And then the other kind of odd family thing. So we did buy a Christmas tree, and I got it back, and I was putting up the Christmas tree whilst I had the Saints game on, and I've done the thing of buying a Christmas tree that's probably too big for the Christmas tree stand we've got. See, this is what happens. You move from London to Devon, suddenly you have a bit more space for a bigger Christmas tree.
No, John, we got upsold on a Christmas tree stand. I think Christmas tree stands are the new big scam, because we got upsold on one as well. I phoned us up. The tree got too big for that stand, mate. It's going to cost me a tenner more.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's a scam.
Well, I mean, we were using our Christmas tree stand from last year, and the tree was just about small enough to get it in the stand, but I did have the saw with me, and also had a pair of like secateurs with me to try and like chip off a couple of odd branches. Managed to get it in. At which point, my brother messages our little WhatsApp Saints supporting group saying that he's not watching the game. He's in A&E because he sawed straight through his finger whilst trying to trim down his Christmas tree to fit it in his Christmas tree stand. So, Tom, I think that extra tenner was worthwhile if my brother's experience was anything to go by.
Oh yeah, no, I don't even have a saw, so the odds on that happening to me are pretty
Okay.
slim.
But yeah. So as my brother was saying that, I was looking at the saw on my kind of lounge floor, going, "Well, thank God I didn't have to use that and didn't end up sawing off my finger." Anyway, onto the football, I suppose. With all that sort of perspective, the fact that Saints have won 2 really, really important games, and I think if at the start of these 3 games you said you offer Saints fans 6 points out of the 3 games, I think most people would take it.
Yeah, and also, can I just say, in Newcastle, I think a lot of Saints fans thought we'd get something in Newcastle. Newcastle had just drawn 2 at home to Man City.
Yeah.
They'd just come off a win against Sheffield United, and they'd actually only conceded 7 goals at home all season. They're actually really quite good at home.
Yeah, they're a bizarre team, aren't they? So, I mean, one of the things I quite like looking at is the XG Premier League table, which tells you about the quality of the quality of the chances that teams have had and how many points they would have if their strikers were more effective at putting them away. And the obvious thing is that you have teams like Liverpool who have really good attackers, also create loads of XG, so they create loads of really good scoring chances, and then they're up towards the top of the table. Same with the likes of Man City, etc. Newcastle are breaking all the statistical models at the moment. So if you take XG and the quality of the chances that they've created and the quality of the chances that they've conceded, they should be at the foot of the table. They should only have 11 points at this stage, but they're not. They're 10th, and they've got 22 points.
So they're like the anti-Saints.
Well, they're just breaking the model. It's just really bizarre. Saints should be, 9th in the table based on XG.
Where are we? We're 18th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, it's...
So whereas we're breaking the model the wrong way, Newcastle are breaking it the right way.
Yeah, well, they're being much more economical, and thus the game proved. I think it's safe to say, John.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, if you looked at the XG model, you could probably predict that Southampton would create lots of good chances, spurn many of them. Newcastle wouldn't have many, but they'd somehow score from them and end up getting all 3 points.
And that's just what happened, isn't it? I mean, I don't know, like, where to start with this game? It doesn't feel as, what I would say, it doesn't feel as despondent as other games we've lost. Yeah. Obviously, coming up the 2-game bounce, I think it was a good performance. Again, it was just a sort of smash and grab from Liverpool. I mean, I'm looking at this table now, and Newcastle aren't in the bottom half. Yeah, this is a good team that we played, and I also look at this table now, and I look at Bournemouth 5 losses in a row, Burnley 3 losses in a row. We did so well drawing that game against Arsenal, winning those 2 games. Because I mean, if we hadn't, we'd be down there with Watford. But we were all over them in the first half. And Nathan Redmond, the second one was difficult, but surely he had to score that first one, John.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones where you say fair play to him because he managed to create the chance for himself, and then you want him to do much better with it, though, don't you? And Redmond, I mean, it's weird because you'd argue that he's kind of like one of those guys who just needs something to go in and then it'll work. But, I mean, he has had a goal this season. He had that goal against Brighton. So, I don't know. I mean, we're suffering a bit with form and confidence, aren't we, with Redmond?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what I would say, I mean, and I imagine the reason why Ralph is not dropping him is because he's still getting lots of chances and he's still causing teams a lot of trouble. But
and he's still working hard as well, isn't he? He's pressing.
Yeah, and he's still working hard.
Yeah.
And he's still, chasing down and pressing from the front. I think what was frustrating with that chance, he creates it all himself. He has the opportunity to, go past Dubravka or draw Dubravka on, but he doesn't. He shoots early. which is fine if it goes in, but
he doesn't get enough height on it, does he?
It doesn't get enough height, and he sort of tries to be clever and clip it over the goalkeeper's legs. But you're right, it doesn't get enough height on it, so it was frustrating. And then he had a good shot from the corner, which you'd argue all you can really do is get that on target. But the first one, if he scores that first one, it's happy days for Saints. But overall, we played well in the first half. And like I agree with Ralph, there's only one team wanting to play football out there.
Yeah. It's funny with Ralph. I've not heard him complain about the opposition like that before, but I think he was just dumbfounded at Newcastle doing what Steve Bruce has made them very effective at doing, which is being this anti-football, anti-statistical model, but they're doing it really well. Second half, I thought we started really well. I thought Danny Ings' goal was fantastic, and it was another really beautiful through ball from Jack Stevens as well. Yeah,
our playmaker that we've been talking about. It was a lovely goal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's quite similar to the Norwich goal, where he anticipates the defender. Not Norwich. The Wolves goal, which we saw there, John, where he kind of anticipates a mistake playing on the last man, and then he did again something very similar, where he's very good because he's probably not the fastest. He doesn't try and run alongside opposition players. He seems to do this thing where he prefers to cut in front of them.
Yeah.
Therefore, sort of nullify. I guess it kind of nullifies them, because at that point, if they touch him,
he's
there's
down.
a red card.
Yeah.
And probably a penalty. And if they don't touch him, he gets the shooting on. It's actually a really clever utilisation of what probably is fairly limited pace Danny Ings has compared to like a Redmond. But again, it's another really smart finish, because it sort of bounces in front of him, but he lashes it past Dubravka.
Yeah. And let's talk about Danny Ings now, because we've talked about Danny Ings' goal in all three fixtures that we've talked about on this episode. And he's got 5 and 5 now. He's absolutely on fire. No Saints player has done that since James Beattie. Yeah. And the man before him that did that, Matthew Letitia. So
he's in good company.
He's going great guns. I'd love to see him make it 6 in the row. That would be fantastic. And I think he will. The thing with Danny Ings, and what you're saying, that he picked up on his kind of positioning, the way that he runs, the way he utilises defenders. I think Danny Ings is an incredibly intelligent football player, and he's not in the kind of like intelligent football player of, the hipster likes to sit back, sip on their glass of, I know it's Rioja for you, Tom, and, watch someone like Pirlo or Jack Stevens playing these beautiful long balls, and that sort of vision. It's a very different sort of football intelligence that I don't think you see it in that many players, but he's gnarly. He's street smart, isn't he? Yeah,
and I think he clearly knows what he's good at, doesn't he? So like he knows that he hasn't scored apparently a single Premier League goal from outside the box. So he knows, you don't really see him shoot from 30 yards, and to be fair to Saints, you don't really see, and this is something that Ralph has talked about a lot, isn't it? Saints aren't shooting actually a lot from 30 odd yards. 35 yards. They don't often take these sort of speculative shots, because they know that, to your point, John, about XG, they know that the odds on actually one of them going in is actually, unless you're like De Bruyne, it's actually fairly low. And you're much better off trying to get shots closer to the goal. And Danny Ings is all about that, isn't he? He's just getting in horrible positions. And, one of the best/worst things that can happen for Saints, I think, is if Danny Ings gets in the England squad, because we all know, from what we read, how fragile Ings' fitness is, and those international breaks are probably how he's making it through. Because he's playing every game, and and the worst thing for Saints could be, if you look at England forwards, Harry Kane definitely in the squad, Rashford definitely in the squad. You start to look past that, Callum Wilson at Bournemouth. Maybe not. You could see Ings maybe getting a call up to see if he can offer England something, but then he doesn't get a break. So I'd really like to see. You want to see him recognised, but maybe when we're safe.
Yeah, I mean, let's look at the top goal scoring charts at the moment. Jamie Vardy 16 goals, but he's retired from international football. Tammy Abraham 11, Marcus Rashford 10, and then from the English players, you've got Harry Kane and Danny Ings on 9 goals each. So, I mean, that is good company to be keeping, isn't it?
Yeah. And also, I mean, Harry Kane is playing with Dele Alli. He's playing with Sissoko behind him. He's playing with Son alongside him. If one of those can't play, then they have to, poor lovies at Spurs have to bring Lamella off the bench. They've got like a wealth of attacking players. And so Harry Kane scoring these goals. Danny Ings is just doing it really by himself, isn't he? He's fighting for these goals.
And he's a different sort of striker as well, isn't he, from what England have? He's not in any way, shape or form like Kane or Rashford.
And he doesn't take penalties.
No. So, yeah. Anyway.
Unlike Rashford, unlike Kane. But yeah.
Lot of love for Danny Ings at the moment. I'm sure the Saints fans and listeners will be enjoying his form as well. Remember, of course, if you want to send in any gushing reviews of any of our players, it's saintsfcpodcast@gmail.com. Unfortunately, we're going to have to talk about the Newcastle resurgence. Andy Carroll gets brought on, and this is where the trouble starts, isn't it? I mean, Ralph described him as a 10-foot tall player. That's probably just how big he looks against some of our pathetic defending.
Yeah. I mean, Ralph talks about him like he was like something out of Game of Thrones, that in the middle of a battle that, the goodies are winning, that like this just sort of thing appears that no one can defeat. I think Ralph maybe gives, I don't know, he seems to give Carroll too much credit, almost. I think, it's not so much about how good, he is, because he's not that unusual. He's just a really big bloke. But you'd think between Stevens and Bednarek, we'd have enough experience to kind of deal with him. But Saints kind of fell to pieces, didn't they, with him?
Yeah.
But also, I think as well, like more maybe what Ralph didn't say, which I think is definitely true, is the lift that he sort of because he's a bit talismanic, isn't he? And the sort of lift that he gives Newcastle's players and the crowd in particular when he comes on.
Yeah, absolutely. In the build-up to that Shelvey header, we had obviously the Andy Carroll cross, but this all came from a free kick with Cedric basically being a complete and utter moron again.
But why didn't he try and head it?
I mean, this is...
What's he doing? Like,
I don't understand Cedric at the
air.
moment. I don't like slagging off our players, Tom. I really don't. But Cedric has just got me completely baffled at the moment.
But John, like, if you think about it, like, what's he trying? Why is he trying to do that? Like, why is his thought process that he will jump 2 foot, 3 foot in the air and do like an in the air standing scissor kick to get the ball away? Like, where do you even think that ball's going to go?
I don't know. I mean,
it's going to probably go behind it back into the Southampton penalty area, because that's the trajectory of his foot. It's
crazy, isn't it? I mean, he really just should have headed that out for a throw, which we would have been able to deal with.
But it's bad decision making, isn't it? Like, we saw it against Arsenal, where instead of tracking Martinelli for the equaliser, he gets lulled forward and they lob a ball over his head. Cause he's only like me. He's only little. So, like, but it's bad decision making, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, like, this all comes down to decisions that players make in a millisecond. And smart players make smart decisions, and Cedric is making bad decisions, and Saints are getting punished because of that.
Yeah, and then of course, the Shelvey header is a back post header. Of course, it wouldn't be anywhere else. But then we almost so immediately take the lead again with the exact same corner routine that we had from Norwich, with the James Ward-Prowse outswinger, long flick on, and then Bertrand. What I can only describe his header as a clearance off the line.
It was almost... I don't know how he managed to miss it, because obviously he had all the goals to hit. Maybe he didn't expect it to come at him from that angle, but you're right, it wasn't exactly the same header.
He must have been expecting it. My theory is that he got there too early. So he was expecting
it. Hit the wrong part of his head.
Yeah, and he was already going for it because he knew exactly where it was going to go. And then he was so quick to react, knowing exactly what he'd done against Norwich in the game before. He's getting himself in that position, and almost he was too far in front of the ball, and then it hits the top of his head rather than his forehead.
50p head.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine margins, isn't it? And I think if that goes in, what's it then? Is it 2-1?
Yeah. And then I think that deflates St James's Park and they don't go on and get the winner.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
I'd agree with that. But they did. I mean, do we have to have a conversation about McCarthy?
I think, what is like the flapping against Arsenal. I mean, this spill was pretty bad, wasn't it? I mean, it was a long shot. It was hit quite hard, but most keepers won't. Most keepers, if they spill it, they only spill it a foot in front of them so they can then smother the ball again. I don't know how it comes straight back out to Fernandes. And to be honest, there were 2 other Newcastle players there waiting.
Yeah, they were.
And also, why is there 3 Newcastle players anticipating that and no Southampton defenders anticipating that?
Yeah. I don't know what Saints can do about goalkeepers because I don't think McCarthy is certainly any worse than Angus Gunn.
No.
I think we seem to play better with McCarthy.
I think he gives the defenders more confidence, and that's why he's in the side.
Distribution seems to be a bit better.
Yeah.
But we have to look at, you can't get away from the fact that could he have done better with their Kyle Walker goal? Could he have done better with the Lacazette second goal?
Yeah.
Could he have done better with that goal? And those goals are, that's what like 5 points.
Yeah.
Right there, or certainly 3 points. So I don't know. I mean, you're loath to criticize. I mean, also is this like Jack Stevens syndrome where because we have so many chances going against us, there's just the odds are that one of them is going to go in. But you're right. You think on their first day at goalkeeper school, they're told like if you get this shot, it goes as far away in a sort of at an angle away from you as it can do.
Yeah.
It can't go straight back out, and it's a smart finish. You're right.
You
like,
hold on to it.
Yeah, but like, why were none of the Saints players anticipating it? No, why were I don't know. It seemed a cheap goal to give away.
Yeah.
To lose a game like that where we played so well.
Whilst we're talking about goalkeepers, we have got another goalkeeper on our books,
Yeah,
Forster, and I'm
young
sure
English guy.
Yeah, I'm sure most Saints fans would have noticed that he had a man of the match winning performance to win Celtic the League Cup against Rangers. I've watched the highlights reel of this, and Fraser Forster has an absolute blinder. He saves a penalty, saves a fantastic long shot, which is up high. I know he doesn't like the long shots that are down low. Does really, really well. But I like seeing Fraser Forster doing really well. There is one thing though, I did notice him not coming for a cross, so he is still
a vampire.
Yeah, still a vampire. But from shot stopping, I mean, you couldn't fault him. He was marvellous against Rangers, and I'm really pleased for him. He looks like he's got his confidence back. He looks like he's enjoying playing football again, which I certainly didn't see in the last 12 months of Fraser Forster at Southampton whilst he was actually in the team.
Yeah, I mean, could he possibly come back? Would he want to come back? I mean, I don't know whether he's going to earn the same amount of money playing at. I mean, what you believe is true. He's still Southampton's most highly paid player. I'd love to know how much. Which was
fair enough at the time because, he set our clean sheet record. We were like 700 minutes without conceding a goal. I mean, can you imagine if we went 700 minutes without conceding a goal now?
I mean, God, like the days of Van Dijk and Fontaine in front of Foster seem a long time ago, don't they?
Yeah.
But really, you're only talking about 3 years ago. But yeah, could he come back? I don't know. Would he want to come back? Would Saints fans accept him? I think, would Saints have signed Angus Gunn if the long-term strategy was to get Foster back? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Foster did come back and McCarthy's the one to ship out. McCarthy's just turned 30. McCarthy would make a very good second goalkeeper for, say, Liverpool.
Yeah.
Or an Arsenal.
Yeah.
He'd definitely make a good living doing that, whether he'd want to do it or even like a Chelsea.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I really don't know. I think there's always that thing as well as if Forster comes back, after playing in Scotland and everyone just says, well, it's the Mickey Mouse League, and then he has a bad first day back. Does he ever get his confidence? I don't know. There's so many questions, isn't there, with Forster? So many. He's such an enigma of a man.
Yeah. Tom, I think the answer is that we don't have the answers. So, listener, get in contact. You know the email address by now. We've talked about the resurgence of Shane Long, and we've talked about Jack Stevens quite a lot. So, as we approach the hour mark of this podcast, and well done, listener, for sticking us for this long, we've gone past one calendar year of Ralph Hasenhüttl. We've had, I think, 39 games with him now. Just highlight, Tom, his record: 38 league games, 12 wins, 49 goals and 45 points. I think we'd probably take a 45-point season, certainly this season.
So where are we now? We're 16 games, 15 points. So if the season ends tomorrow, we'd be relegated. 36 points.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we're going to take this form into the rest of the season. I think we're going to be fine. But, yeah, I don't know. I love Ralph. I love the passion. I love the energy. I love the enthusiasm. I love the honesty. I do think he's bitten off a hell of a job here with the players we've got.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's got a tough job. I don't think he's taken us as far as we'd hoped. I mean, certainly at the start of the season, I think we were all expecting a bit more, but perhaps we were being unreasonable with Ralph. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts on that are. A few games ago, obviously there were being questions asked. We were second bottom in the league. We hadn't won for yonks, and so questions do get asked. Now we've had 3 of these very key 5 fixtures. We're kind of midway through that. I'd make the argument that I think Ralph is the man. I think we stick with him for the rest of the season. I think I'd like to see him with us next season as well, obviously depending on how the rest of the season goes. But and I think we may get out of the relegation battle at some point.
Yeah, I agree with all those things, John. I can't see us going down. I think we've got 2 good players. I think too many good players. I know everyone always says that, but if you look at, I mean, tonight, West Ham, we've got West Ham next. Tonight West Ham were 1-0 up against Arsenal and have completely collapsed in 10 minutes. We're losing 3-1 at home. We've got them next. They're on a terrible run of form. 4 losses. This will be 4 losses or 5 losses in 6 games for them. You've got Bournemouth 5 losses in a row. You've got Watford, who look just dead. I'd argue Norwich after the sort of disappointment losing at home to Sheffield United. I think we'll be fine. I think we're not going to. I think Saints fans need to be realistic. We're not going to get a better manager than Ralph. Ralph's as good as it's going to get for Saints, and we need to embrace that and recognise the job he's doing with. If you look at Arsenal, Ben Rack's good, but Ben Rack, Stevens probably wouldn't get into many other Premier League teams as much as we do like him. He's making a bit of a silk puff out of a sow's ear, and he's also making players that haven't really consistently performed like James Ward-Prowse. He's got the best out of Redmond, maybe not this season, but he did last season. I feel that maybe the signings. I think we definitely needed another centre back, and I'm not quite sure why we didn't get one. Obviously, Shay Adams hasn't worked out, so that's my worry, is whether the signings are right. But obviously, that goes beyond Ralph. That goes to the structure of the club, which hopefully they're looking to rectify now.
Yeah, and I mean, if we look at let me just. I've got 2 trails of thought here. One is that this season seems to be a very strange season, in the fact that the whole mid-table down to us in the last place of the relegation zone is pretty tight. So from, I think, 6th down to 18th, there's 9 points separating, and it's all very evenly spread. So at one point, I think we were up to 13th when we were beating Newcastle on the live league table. But really, even Sheffield United, who've had a cracking start to the season, they're on 22 points. That's a really, really good start. That's exactly where they'd want to be at this stage of the season. But even they're not safe yet. They could be drawn into it. Palace could be drawn into it. Newcastle could be drawn into it if they stop breaking the statistical models and the results start going the way that football statistics tells us they should. Brighton could still be sucked into it. Burnley could be sucked into it. Everton, I think, will escape from it. Bournemouth are dropping like a stone. West Ham, again, you'd say their players are probably too good to go down. Villa, who've had a really good start to the season, they're on the same points of us. So there's literally everything to play for. But I think this season you'll see Watford go down, and I think you'll see actually two other fairly decent teams go down. I think it's going to be really fine margins this season. I just hope that we've got enough to get through.
I mean, if you hit with 4 points off Norwich, with the same goal difference, more goals scored.
Goal difference wouldn't be a great thing for it to go down to this season, would it?
No, but I mean, having said that, if you look, we've got West Ham next. This is a ridiculous thing, isn't it, about this league? Like 2 wins could see Saints pull for like 13th, 12th, 13th, but then you're still only probably 4 or 5 points away from going back to the relegation there. And I think Saints have to focus on, they're going to be very disappointed. We've got West Ham on Saturday. Saints are going to be tremendously disappointed if they can't get a result against West Ham.
Yeah,
that is a game where we really underperformed last season at home and away. With West Ham taking 6 points off us. So Saints have to, on TV on Saturday night, get 3 points from West Ham, because that's the difference, isn't it? That drags. I mean, West Ham are down there. I mean, to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if we're playing another manager on Saturday. I think maybe that could be the result tonight. 59 minutes at home, winning 1-0, by 68 minutes, losing 3-1. That could be the end of Pellegrini. So that'll be interesting what it does to West Ham. But if we can get 3 points on Saturday,
I'd like to
firmly
be the team
drag
that
West Ham
does
into it.
the killer blow. I'd
so
rather
that'd
they
be the
wouldn't
triple,
change
wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think Saturday's game, like in all this run of games, if you look, so what have we got? We've got West Ham on Saturday. Who have we got after that, John? Is it Chelsea after that? No, it's not.
No, we've got Villa before Chelsea. So we've
Villa.
got Villa on the 21st, then Chelsea
So
on
if you look,
Boxing Day.
we will have played in our last 5 games. We will have played the 4 teams around us.
Yeah.
As it stands.
In a 5-game
nuts.
run. Yeah.
When does that probably ever happened in the Premier League? I don't know, but so this is an unprecedented opportunity, and it's a big if, but if they can get 3 points against West Ham, and then they can turn in a performance, even a draw against Villa, it just brings these teams, particularly West Ham. And I don't know about you, John, but I would love to see West Ham go down.
Oh, yeah, it would be good fun, wouldn't it?
Oh, that would be great. That'd be a great day for football.
So the reason why I'm saying that I think Ralph is the man to get us through, and it's all about if the players can do what he's asking them to do, like they did in that game against Norwich in the first half, like they did in the game against Arsenal, then the tactics will work. And if the players commit to Ralph, I think we can get out of this and have a finish, maybe somewhere between 12th and 15th.
Considering the start of the season we've had, that would be amazing.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we'd hope to be positive in this episode, and 6 points out of a possible 9 from the games we're talking about. I think that's good, Tom. I think we're moving in the right direction. The Newcastle game was disappointing, but we've got 2 very winnable fixtures coming up, and hopefully we'll win 1 or 2 of them.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I mean, I'd love to. I mean, we owe West Ham something.
Yeah.
So let's take it out on them, and then they'll go to Villa full of beans.
Yeah, brilliant. All right, Tom. Well, I think that draws this episode to a close. I hope you have a very enjoyable birthday tomorrow, and thank you very much for joining me
John.
tonight.
Thank you. All right, John. We'll speak soon.
Yeah. Cheerio, listeners.